Today's reflection comes from Cherry Poynton, who is a Presbyterian elder and Honorary Secretary of the Dublin Council of Churches. The reading is from Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 to 25. Now the birth of Jesus the Messiah took place in this way, when his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. Her husband Joseph, being a righteous man, and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to dismiss her quietly. But just when he had resolved to do this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." All this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. "Look, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call him Emmanuel," which means God is with us. When Joseph awoke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took her as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had borne a son, and he named him Jesus. Now let's listen to Cherry.
Greetings. I'm Cherry Poynton. I'm an elder in the Presbyterian Church, and I'm also currently the Honorary Secretary of the Dublin Council of Churches. And today I am walking Advent with you through the first chapter of Matthew's Gospel, and particularly the verses that relate very specifically to Joseph, starting at verse 18. I sometimes think that we are so familiar with the Gospel stories that they lose some of their aspect. And when we're talking about God coming to earth as a human child, we're so busy stressing the divine, which is of course the most important part of the story, but we lose the human dimension, and that too is very important. Matthew was writing for a Jewish readership, and so in the earlier part of this chapter he stresses Joseph's wonderful heritage right back through King David to Abraham, the founder of the nation. And with a family tree like that, Joseph would be expected by society to behave in a certain way. This would mean that when his fiancée became pregnant outside marriage, that he would make a big fuss and to-do about it, and to avoid being tainted in the eyes of society, who would not, of course, have known at this stage the origin of the child's conception, that he would have been expected to get rid of her as fast as possible. And yet Joseph's reaction, first of all, is to do it very quietly and just not to marry her. He's obviously an exceptional man, even at this stage, that his thoughts are for Mary, and he treats her with as much kindness as he can. It's at this point, of course, that God sends his angel with a message to Joseph. And this message, of course, starts by telling Joseph that the baby that Mary is carrying has actually been conceived by the Holy Spirit and not by any human being. Furthermore, the message goes on that Joseph, far from quietly putting Mary aside, he's actually to marry her. He is to become the human father of this child. Women had no rights in those days, and so any woman needed the protection of a man. And Joseph, as we've already said, is obviously a kind man. And the angel is now telling him that he is to be the father, in human terms, of this child. He is to provide the home for Mary and the baby as he grows up to manhood. And then the angel adds something else. Joseph is to name the baby Jesus. Now, names have a special significance in biblical times, and this particular name, Jesus, means God saves. And that too would have meant something to Joseph. Obviously, he is a man with a close relationship, a deep relationship with God, and a strong faith. He would also have known the prophets that we find in what we call the Old Testament, and particularly he would have known the prophet Isaiah, who speaks of the coming servant, whose name will be Emmanuel, God with us. And it must have been a staggering realization to Joseph when he is told that the baby is not only to be called Jesus, but that he will be Emmanuel as well. And Joseph's reaction? His reaction is that he obeys. He does as God tells him, against probably his natural human instinct, but he is so close to God, his faith is so deep, that he does exactly as he is told. He marries Mary, he calls the baby Jesus, and also Emmanuel. And in this human element of the story, we too are challenged, because God still saves. God is still with us, and God still speaks to us if we draw close to him and if we deepen our faith day by day. May God bless us with his grace and peace at this time.